Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. My name is Winged Supernova, and this is a very special episode from what I can tell, because I believe it is the 100th cumulative episode of Great Ace Attorney on this channel, which is quite something indeed. But before we get into this, I spent around 20 minutes just looking at absolutely every single piece of evidence. I'm recording this on a different day than the last part, just based on my time schedule and things like that. I think I'm going to sit here and record until my voice gives out, or we finish Great Ace Attorney today. I just finished earlier today. I just finished the main story of Kirby and the Forgotten Land as well. So this might be a big day of recording for me. I finished both at the same time. But as for now, we are currently still at the same point that I was stuck at the end of the last episode, where the prosecution, Kazuma, is still trying to assert that Gregson was killed at Fresno Street. And I went looking through this stuff. If you look at the autopsy report, it says the time of death is indeterminate. But he absolutely died immediately. Instant death. Shot in the chest at close range from the front. Instant death. Scorch marks at point of entry. The bullet exited the body from behind. And the only thing that I could find that I could build off of that fact was something that I thought of when it came to Judge Jigoku fitting inside that suitcase. He fit inside in a similar way that Gregson is situated here on the ground, almost as if he was in the suitcase like that. So that's what I'm going with. I mean, that's the only thing that I really have that matches stuff. If it's not right, then I guess I'll just go fuck myself or something. Okay, the music stopped. I think we're good. A photograph of the victim in the very location you claim he wasn't killed? Yes, but the point is the posture of the body itself. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question that his body would have been curled up in a ball like that. I forget what voice I gave him. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. He could easily have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal. Objection. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Jigoku, but it's your logic that is flawed. What? According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself into that position. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now. You're suggesting... The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out onto the floor from the inside of a large travel trunk. No! You're quite right. The shape of the body, it looks exactly as if it had been kept in a confined space. I would have never gotten that. Never gotten that if I didn't, see that fact in the autopsy report. Judge Jigoku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood. Ugh! present my trunk? I refuse! What? Why am I giving Kazuma such a weird voice? Oh boy. On what grounds? I'm the Minister of the Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan. I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some strepling's baseless accusations. In other words, Judge Jikoku, there is blood in your trunk. I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that allow me to... At this moment, you're not a government minister. You are a witness in a trial in Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside this courtroom might be, you will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth. Ah! Getting spicy. Order in court. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what's it to be? You can't be serious! You did it?! Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Asogi? What? Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense. What? You? Dear God, outrageous! So it was you! You admit to... No! I admit to nothing more than what I've said. Yeah, he's gonna blame it on Kazuma now. Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection. What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean? I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So, I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else. You can't still deny it. If you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man? As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. And moreover, he'd already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life. Oh! That's right. Who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Asogi. You... I never thought you'd stoop to this, Seishiro Jigoku. You've taken the words straight out of my mouth, Prosecutor Kazuma Asogi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you could pin the crime on me, did you? Well, the prosecution counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question. Yes, on an assassination mission, no less. You wouldn't. So, what do you make of that, young stripling? You've heard my testimony now, and that's all I have to say on the matter. I'll admit to nothing more. I don't believe this. Counsel for the defense. What is your position now? The court awaits your response to the witness's assertion. The assertion that on the night in question, the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Asogi. This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku, or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Very well, the defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. The idea that the victim's murderer could have been committed by Prosecutor Asogi is... Alright, let's think about this. So, Asogi, he was there. We know he was there. I feel like it would have been impossible, though, because... I'm just trying to think about how he was killed, right? He was shot with the gun. We don't know whose gun it is. If we could prove it was Jigoku's, that would be the nail in the coffin. At least I would think so. No, it wouldn't be. You can't prove that he's the one who fired it. Asogi, on the other hand, I don't think he ever had a gun. So if he were the one to have killed Gregson, Judge Jigoku's not saying that he witnessed him kill Gregson, so he would have had to have used Gregson's gun. Because it was a member of the judiciary, or a member of the law enforcement's gun, whoever that may be. I feel like he may have attempted to kill Gregson and then failed and left. Well, anyway, I don't think it was Jigoku. I can't really... I don't think it was Asogi. I can't prove how it's impossible off the top of my head, but I'm just going to roll with it. Judge Jigoku, let me remind you of something you said only a few minutes ago. You claimed that logical reasoning is the future of the judicial process. It is, no question. Well, logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, that it would have been impossible for Prosecutor Asogi to commit the crime. What? Ooh, the music. The court will only accept an argument that is supported by compelling evidence. So present what you have, counsel. What proof is there that allegedly demonstrates the impossibility of Prosecutor Asogi's involvement? Oh boy. An alibi would do it. And I don't think he has one because he was there. And nobody witnessed him in a different place at the time. I'm thinking. I'm really thinking. Might be this. Let me think again. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think it's not the telegram. It's not the small component. I was thinking maybe Karuma, but I don't really think that proves that he couldn't have done it. Because he could have just taken the gun and shot him. But didn't he say that he wasn't on the ship last night? Like he got off and stayed somewhere? This is the only thing I've got. And I hope it's it. Oh, it's specialized. This itinerary for crew members of the SS Grouse, my lord. This is conclusive proof. An itinerary? How does that prove anything? Judge Jigoku, the moment you acknowledge that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant. What? Why? On the night in question, as always, a crewman's sentry was on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside the cabin. Absolutely, because it's inconceivable that the guard wouldn't have heard it and come to investigate. So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. Yeah, I'm following you now. And that narrows it down to the 20 minutes just after 10 o'clock, as indicated on the itinerary. Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far. But the crucial point is this. When the evacuation drill took place, the steamship had already put to sea from the port of Dunkirk. Ah. Now, clearly the murder could have only been committed by somebody who was aboard the vessel at the time. But Prosecutor Asogi stated in yesterday's proceedings, I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life, so I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent that night at a boarding house in the town and returned to England the following morning. Which I'm sure the court will agree is conclusive proof that Kazuma Asogi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing. Ugh! He's not done yet. No, absolutely not. I don't accept that at all. What do you mean? The boy's just saying that to exonerate himself. We can't trust that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, after he left my cabin, he hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship. Just waiting for his chance to come back and... No, that's out of the question. Isn't it, Kazuma? As the defense rightly recalls, I disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. And as I said yesterday, I signed my name in the accommodations register book. Ooh, I forgot about that. That would prove it if they could find that evidence. All extremely easy to verify, and undeniable proof. Ugh, no, There's no escape this time. You can forget that you're a judge or a government minister. It's time you gave the court an honest answer, as a common man. Urgh. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. Then you dumped the body in the room on Fresno Street and made it look as if the murder had happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it, Seishiro Jigoku? Was that damned trial 10 years ago. That's when this all began. Oh boy, looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was doomed already. Ooh, we got the earthquake. Ah! Oh shit! What the fuck? Is this Gravity Rush? It's over! My life is over. That was a crazy breakdown. A British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. Though it was hardly a request, it was a demand. And for that, you decided to recruit Mr. Asogi. But things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain. And you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement. Because I was already on my way to Britain at that time in Kazuma's place. And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation. To eliminate the mark myself, personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that. The International Forensic Science Symposium, I presume. That's right. I decided it would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain, so I enlisted the help of my British counterpart, and made arrangements for a pretext that would take the inspector to Dunkirk. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper. Oh, the actual Reaper. What? The Reaper? But there's only one person who could have done that. The mastermind of the entire operation. The Reaper himself. Ah!
So, that means that the assassin exchange was... It was all planned by the Reaper.
I'm not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was all a trap designed to lead him into France, and his own death.
Oh, how awful.
It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him time to attack me. I choked him until he lost consciousness. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time, waiting. For the 20 minutes after 10 o'clock, I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came round and went for me in a reckless move. I received the British-issue gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. I never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that. So the revolver belongs to you, does it? Then the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Grouse, which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in the room on Fresno Street. The young judicial assistant over there has already answered that question. There was no way I could take the body up on deck to throw it over the side. That's precisely where all the crewmen were gathered for the evacuation drill. So before the first-class cabin sentries returned, I took the corpse to the refrigeration room. And then on arriving in Dover, you concealed the body in your trunk in order to snuggle it past the border police. I knew I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced when the body was found in London. In that case, you must have known. You must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. Yes, my British counterpart sent me everything I needed to know. The inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock that afternoon, in order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone, from whom he would take back his police identification. Ah. I decided that man would be the perfect person to set up as the culprit. So I took a hackney carriage over there with the body still in my trunk.
That must have been just after we took this photograph with you at the hotel then.
Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was a little more than nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling little firecrackers.
Miss Venus, of course.
I conceived of the candle trick there and then. So I donned a simple disguise and approached the girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot.
What sort of disguise?
For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece in his own traveling case, so I put that on, although I suspect I drew more attention to myself in that than I would have otherwise.
The hairpiece we found at the scene. The inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation.
I only arrived at the room at around 4:45, so I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board, and set up my little candle trick. I arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later. So that Mr. Boone, who was due to arrive at 5, would walk straight into a trap. Except, at the last moment, I made a careless blunder.
What was that? I imagine it was the bag of fish and chips.
Ah! I did notice that it had fallen out of his overcoat pocket when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. I put it back into his pocket the following morning, but... well, it seems the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish. Anyway, that's everything. All the sordid details of what I did. Something tells me we're not done yet, though. I've heard enough. We've arrived at the truth about the murder of one of the country's most capable and respected police inspectors. The witness will be tried in the coming days. For a crime of such a vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty.
An exchange of assassins. What a foolhardy idea.
Mr. Jigoku, one last detail. Who was your counterpart in Britain? Who was the mastermind behind the assassin exchange? Nothing you say now can make matters any worse for you. Just tell us. Enough! I've already told you that I cannot say. Even though as things stand, you may very well never set foot in your homeland again. What are you waiting for? Can't we get this over with now? It's finished. All of it. I'm finished. Then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I now pronounce the findings of this court. This man before us has admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson. Seishiro Jigoku, it is the opinion of this court that you should be found guilty. And may I remind all those present of the strict confidentiality demanded by this closed court. Moments ago, Mr. Jigoku signed a written confession, admitting to the murder of Inspector Gregson and the subsequent conveyance of the body. In short, the defendant's innocence has therefore been established beyond doubt.
Oh, wonderful. Well done, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, thank you.
Is something wrong?
I'm just a little troubled by his silence. The true identity of the Reaper of the Bailey and this extraordinary assassin exchange. We do remain in the dark about these mysteries. However, insofar as the indictment brought against the defendant in this trial, we have reached a conclusion. I have every intention of pursuing both mysteries. As a prosecutor. As you wish. Now, for the formal adjudication. I hereby declare the defendant, Barak Van Zeeks. Yeah. Saw that coming. It's too soon for this to be done. The prosecution calls for adjudication to be deferred. Counsel? The accused's innocence hasn't been fully established at all, and therefore it would be wrong to deliver a verdict at this time. That is the prosecution's unwavering position.
What? But Judge Jigoku has already confessed.
Nevertheless, Barak Van Zeeks has committed crimes for which he must be punished. well, he believes that he's the Reaper, so he thinks that, yeah, he's gonna try and say that, yeah, he's gonna try and get, he's like, this is my chance, I can get Barrack on, I can claim that he's the Reaper, as well as get revenge on him for prosecuting my father to death.
Well, it would appear you have information that the court needs to hear, Prosecutor Asogi.
Certainly, the murder of Inspector Gregson was actually carried out by Seishiro Jigoku. But it's clear from the witness's testimony that he was coerced into complying with the plot. Into this sick, merciless assassin exchange. That may be true, but... So what I want to know is, who coerced Jigoku? Who was pulling the strings? The victim went to France having been ordered on a mission for the Reaper, only to be murdered. In other words, the mastermind behind the assassin exchange is someone in a position to give such an order. As we've already established, the Reaper himself.
Well, certainly, that would appear to follow.
The prosecution hereby formally accuses the man in the dock, Barrack Van Zieks, of being the Reaper of the Bailey, and furthermore, I'm going to prove his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. What? Yeah. That's the play. Time to break your spirit, Kazuma.
Order, order, order! The Reaper of the Bailey is a long-standing mystery, Counsel. Are you suggesting you have some new information with which to build a case?
Scotland Yard has already investigated Lord Van Zieks very thoroughly in that regard, and they found no evidence whatsoever to substantiate the claim that he is the Reaper.
Perhaps, but circumstances have now changed. What do you mean? It's already been established that the assassin exchange was negotiated with Jigoku by the Reaper himself. Which means we now have a new line of questioning by which to identify definitively the man's identity. That is the prosecution's intention here.
I must say I'm surprised by quite how tenaciously you appear to want to besmirch my name.
You are guilty of an unforgivable crime, Lord Van Zieks. And I will bring you to justice for it, whatever it takes. That explains Kazuma's silence before. He'll stop at nothing to finish what Lord Van Zieks unwittingly started 10 years ago. Here we go.
Very well. Whilst it's extremely irregular, I will on this occasion grant the prosecution further opportunity for witness testimony. The defendant will disclose any and all involvement he has had with the Reaper and the assassin exchange.
I thank you, my lord, for guiding the court so wisely.
I hereby declare this court to be in session for a supplementary hearing.
Damn, he's a pyromancer? Turning on the light so that I actually have some light here. Oh boy, we got a foot. We got a big fucking foot.
Pray I turn a blind eye to the discourtesy as I verify this vile and unremitting accusation. Hasn't soured the contents of my hollowed chalice.
Lord Van Zieks!
I first had to suffer the pseudonym of the Reaper 10 years ago now. And ever since that time I've endured the weight of the implied guilt that's gone with it. So I welcome the chance to testify now, and crush those allegations once and all.
Good. Then let justice decide, Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution seeks to begin building its case by calling the accused to the stand as the primary witness, in order that he may answer the accusation brought by the prosecution that he is the Reaper of the Bailey.
And what says the defense?
Putting the defendant in the witness stand can be extremely dangerous. And Kazuma-sama is so emotional at the moment. He's not thinking logically.
You're right that he's not himself, but I knew it would be like this. And I came here today determined to face him through whatever it might arise. As a lawyer, and as his friend.
Then that's what we must do.
The defense has no objection, my lord.
Very well. Defendant, you will take the witness stand and give formal testimony on the subject of your involvement with the Reaper and the assassin exchange. As you wish, my lord.
Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy.
I've never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day, and how I came to discover the body. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson. Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the assassin exchange.
That's a lot of statements that are very logical and like creating an actual like psychological proof.
So you deny all exact accusations by the prosecution? Both that you are the Reaper of the Bailey and that you masterminded the assassination exchange.
The assassin exchange.
I acknowledge that the public at large believe me to be the Reaper. However, that's a fallacy, which I alone am in a position to forswear.
Naturally, the prosecution believes the testimony just given by the accused to be untrue.
Ryunosuke Naruhodo.
Yes?
Let me ask you, why are you here? What really brings you to this courtroom?
A desire to uncover the truth. Even if the truth proves your client to be guilty. From all my experiences in this courtroom, I've come to realize something. The truth can't be hidden. Sooner or later, it will come out. So it's always my intention to work with my client in pursuit of the truth. I want you to remember what you just said. Alright, I will try to remember what he just said because I'm pretty bad at that.
Enough dilatory chatter. Counsel for the defense, proceed to cross-examine the witness.
Yes, my lord. I know exactly what you're thinking, Kazuma. I know you're just waiting to point it out. The contradiction you're convinced lies somewhere within this man's testimony. Well, we'll have to find that contradiction soon, because, that's our job.
Hold it!
So you're not what the general public refer to as the infamous Reaper of the Bailey?
Exactly.
Don't imagine for a moment that the court will be satisfied with a one-word answer on this.
I realize that.
If you're intending to comment on every sentence, this could take a while, Kazuma. Didn't you find it disturbing, though, that one by one, defendants who'd been acquitted after your unsuccessful prosecution were killed?
Let me answer that question by posing another. If one by one, defendants who'd been acquitted after your successful defense were killed, would you find that disturbing?
Disturbing? I couldn't possibly say how that would make me feel with a one-word answer like that.
Exactly.
Well, that told me.
But even though I'm not the Reaper, that doesn't mean I ignored all the hearsay. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement.
Hold it!
You say for years. How long exactly?
Since the very first time the Reaper's influence was felt in this courtroom, 10 years ago now.
And your investigations led you somehow to Inspector Gregson, you're saying?
I didn't want to believe it. He was a personal acquaintance. We'd worked on cases together in the past.
A friend, even?
It felt like a betrayal, but I demanded permission to search his office at the Yard without his knowledge.
Which is when you found his secret notebook, is it?
It's when I first learned of the location he noted only as grouse and the appointment at 5 p.m. on the 31st, though I didn't know the significance of those details at the time.
So now we're at the nub of the matter.
As it turns out, the significance for me personally was very unfortunate.
Yeah, I think unfortunate might be a little bit, of a lacking term for that.
That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day, and how I came to discover the body.
Hold it!
But why did you go to that specific location?
I thought that if it was the Reaper's headquarters, then by turning up there at 5 o'clock, I would catch whoever was involved red-handed. Sadly, all that was awaiting me was the inspector's corpse.
Yes, even though it wasn't designed for you, you walked straight into the trap set by Jigoku.
Exactly. Jigoku had intended to implicate Hugh Boone, but unhappily for me, I arrived at the scene first.
Ha! A ridiculously careless blunder. Moved on to just throwing insults around, I see then, Kazuma.
Think what you will, it doesn't change the truth.
Hold it!
There is a link between you and Gregson, though.
Of course. We were close acquaintances. We'd worked on numerous cases together. I considered the man to be a mentor of sorts. He taught me a number of important lessons.
He did? Such as what?
Where to buy good fish and chips, and such like.
Well, that was convincing.
Dr. Wilson was a coroner, of course, but that was some time in the past. And in any case, I understand it was several years ago now that he was invited to work at a Japanese university.
That's right. He was a visiting professor at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo.
It should be unambiguously clear, then, that no link exists between myself and him. In other words, I had no motive for sending some assassin across the oceans to kill the man.
It sounds plausible enough, and I want to believe it, but something about this just doesn't quite sit right with me. And I think I know what it is.
Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the assassin exchange.
So, I'm going here. No thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson. I'm pretty sure it's Clint's autopsy report, signed by Dr. John H. Wilson. It says, credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. So, there is a link.
Objection!
What is this? An autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old. From the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. What? My brother's autopsy report?
I'm pleased to see the defense doesn't intend to run from the undeniable truth.
Order in court. What reason do you have for presenting a 10-year-old autopsy report here, counsel?
This, the autopsy report of the professor's final victim, is an indelible link between Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson, and the defendant.
Not that accursed name again, the professor.
I've personally researched all of the court records relating to that case. I know that at the time, autopsy was considered sacrilege to the victims' souls, And for a member of the aristocracy like Lord Clint Van Zeeks, it was unthinkable. But someone implored the powers that be to allow the autopsy to go ahead, Inspector Gregson. He declared that he was certain he would obtain conclusive proof from the procedure.
And it was Dr. Wilson who conducted the autopsy. His signature is clearly visible on the document.
As promised by Gregson, the autopsy report did indeed produce evidence. Evidence that conclusively proved Genshin Asogi was guilty of the murders. In my brother's dying moments, he mustered all his remaining strength to leave that vital clue behind. Indeed, that was the key to indicting the professor for his crimes and the conclusive evidence that convicted him. It enabled Lord Van Zeeks here to avenge his brother's senseless death with a marvelous victory in court.
A marvelous victory, was it? I wonder if that's really true.
What?
Could the same be said if it turned out that the key piece of evidence in question was in fact fabricated? If the inspector, the coroner, and the prosecutor all colluded together to cast an innocent Japanese man as a mass murderer and send him to his death?
That's outrageous!
And now, 10 years later, for some reason, the secret has been threatened and needs protecting, which is why the inspector and the coroner had to be silenced, isn't it? By someone in power in Japan and in Britain, using the two killers recruited for the assassin exchange. He's really going all in on this, isn't he?
Order! Order at once!
10 years ago, my father was convicted in this very courtroom as a mass murderer to be sentenced to death. But it was all a sham, and I swore to myself that I'd prove it, which is why I had to come to Britain. Whatever the cost.
You'll have to forgive me if I feel compelled to toast this vengeful Nipponese's tenacity of purpose here. However, he who fails to quash his emotions in the courtroom has failed as a lawyer.
Come on, Kazuma, you know this won't wash. You're claiming your father was misrepresented in a trial that took place a whole decade ago. You must see that without evidence, that's nothing more than a wild accusation. As it happens, I have evidence. What? As the court has heard, I crossed the channel to France with Gregson on the 31st. I went with him on the pretext of being the assassin recruited to kill Seishiro Jigoku. But my true intentions were to make the inspector tell me the truth.
What truth?
The truth about the evidence, and he acknowledged what I'd already deduced. There's a closely guarded secret about what went on in that autopsy 10 years ago.
What? A secret? I know nothing of any secret.
While we waited for my supposed mark in Jigoku's cabin, I drew my clan's illustrious sword Karuma before the inspector's eyes. He very quickly understood what my true motive was.
Right, I see. You're that Asogi's young lad, are you? And what, you're gonna cut me down with that thing, is that it?
That will very much depend on the answers you give to my questions. I want to know what really happened 10 years ago. The truth, that's all.
Before we get into it, let me make one thing clear. I still believe your father was the professor. There's no doubt in my mind. But unfortunately back then, we didn't have the evidence we needed to make the crime stick.
So, you admit it then? The evidence used in my father's trial was fabricated?
It was for the good of the country. Anyway, I was just following orders.
Orders? What exactly did you do? Speak!
I'm not saying another word. Even if your life depends on it. That's right. Even then. And that's when he broke Karma.
So that's when the tip of the sword broke.
Oh, Kazuma-sama.
If the result of Clint Van Zieks' autopsy report were fabricated, then the investigating officer Gregson and the lead coroner Wilson must have known about it. And they can only have been ordered to pervert the course of justice in that way by one man. The man leading the case for the prosecution, Barak Van Zieks. Or that guy right there.
In other words, the defendant did have cause to organize this exchange of assassins.
Exactly. And as was established earlier, it has to have been the Reaper himself who liaised with Jigoku and Japan to arrange the exchange. Ah. So it follows that the Reaper's true identity can only be that of the man who stands accused in this courtroom today, Barak Van Zieks. Yeah, it's got a few holes.
Objection!
Kazuma Asogi.
What?
What you've just told the court, are you absolutely certain of your facts? Did Gregson really fabricate evidence for that trial 10 years ago?
I heard it with my own ears. His shameful admission.
In that case, I know. The name of the Reaper.
What? Lord Van Zieks?
I gave no such orders. I know that for certain. Which narrows down the remaining possibilities to one!
If Lord Van Zieks isn't the one behind all this, then yes, there is only one other person who could have done something like that. I believe I know who it is too.
You?
I just had a feeling this name was going to come up. The true identity of the infamous Reaper of the Bailey is... this bitch. I'm assuming it's that bitch. I'm just gonna scroll through. I don't think it's him. It's definitely not him. And it's definitely not her. I mean, it's not him. I very much doubt it's him. It's gotta be you. Wields absolute authority in judicial matters.
Take that!
The only person who could have arranged the assassin exchange and manipulated the autopsy results is the Lord Chief Justice himself, Lord Mael Strongheart.
What? Lord Strongheart?
Yes, it's true that 10 years ago the defendant handled the prosecution of the professor in court, but he only took over the case after his brother Lord Clint Van Zieks had been killed.
I can only assume that this is the most inappropriate joke in British judicial history.
Nah, I had you pegged since case fucking 3, bitch. I was like, this guy's the fucking mastermind behind whatever the hell's going on. Oh boy, he's so intimidating. Just by first meeting, I was like, yeah, no, it's you, it's you. Oh man, what an easy mastermind to pinpoint. Well, Lord Van Zieks,
10 years ago, I was very new to my profession, but I had a burning desire to avenge my brother's death, so I pleaded for control of the case. The investigation to that point, the supplication of the lords to allow my brother's corpse to be examined, all the evidence I was given, the autopsy reports, it all came from you. I've spent my life since then believing I was in your debt for the way you stood aside and let me handle the trial. But I see now. I was very much mistaken.
It was a hugely influential force that caused the inspector and the coroner to break the law 10 years ago. And that same force was still felt a decade later on the other side of the world by Seishiro Jigoku. Lord Strongheart, everything falls into place when we recognize that you are the Reaper of the Bailey. Yeah, he's trying to make all criminals die, and yeah, he wields extreme power and authority. He's kind of a megalomaniac in that regard. Oh boy.
The court awaits your response, my lord. This may very well go down in British judicial history, but I assure you, it is no joke. Consider this a formal accusal by the defense. It doesn't warrant a response. A formal accusal? Don't be absurd. The defense's claims are utter nonsense, a wild fantasy at best.
You're not going to defend yourself?
You claim there was some wrongdoing with Lord Clint Van Zieks' autopsy? That's utterly untrue.
Objection!
But I heard it from Gregson's own lips. He admitted to it.
And where is your evidence?
What?
Gregson's dead now, unless you were thinking of summoning a ghost to the stand.
You mean to say?
I forget how the system works in your little backwater country. But in the courts of the British Empire, without evidence, there is no case. I have no intention of entertaining some wild fantasy that can't possibly be substantiated by anyone or anything.
Ah!
Order! Order in court! Following Inspector Gregson's murder, and in the light of Dr. Wilson's death as well, there's really no one left who could testify about the events of 10 years ago, is there? So that was the real purpose of the assassin exchange. This court has no business raking over the coals of a case that was concluded a decade ago. The accusal brought by the prosecution and the defense is categorically denied. I take it there are no objections.
Kazuma, he's more or less waited his whole life for this moment. Is there really nothing else we can do now? Is there no other avenue we can go down in pursuit of the truth about what happened all those years ago? If only there was someone who could testify about Clint Van Zieks' autopsy. I mean, there obviously is someone. Otherwise, they wouldn't give me the option. Because, like, if only there was someone. Like, come on. So who would it be? Let's think a second. He is an authority in forensic medicine. Maybe Mikotoba? Maybe Mikotoba. I don't think it's him. He was good friends with Mikotoba, the governor of Barclay Prison. Redheaded League. She wasn't there. I don't think. Yeah, because Scythe was made the coroner after that case, right? So she wouldn't have had anything to do with it. So it's not her. It would have to be Mikotoba, right? We'll go with it. He's gone to extraordinary lengths to cover his tracks. even so far as dispatching an assassin all the way to Japan to ensure Dr. Wilson's silence. And Dr. Scythe won't say anything against Strongheart. But there's still one ray of hope. Actually, there is one person. One person who could still testify about that autopsy. Don't be ridiculous. There's no one left. Who, Ryunosuke? Who? Tell me! Kazuma, Please, this trial can't end. Not yet. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the truth. The person the defense would like to call to the stand to testify about the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zieks is... I'm assuming him, but we're going to find out in the next episode. Big cliffhanger, yay! I have no idea how much is left. It could just be Mikotoba, and... it's probably not. I'm probably going to have to do 2 more episodes after this to finish it. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. Thank you guys very much for watching. And in the next episode, we're going to get to the climax of this case. The climax of the whole series. Oh, it's going to be good. See you guys then.